So presumably at some point you'll have a number of different versions of this, I would imagine.
That at a later date, yes. Because many of these things are ongoing, transforming.
But we do actually have in the exhibition one example where you've done just that. You've taken one of the images and you've developed it through into a fully formed, recognisable image incorporating quite a lot of sort of mythological detail. And it starts with this. This is our first piece, isn't it? Taken from the actual bodywork of the car. It's the photograph.
This is one of the last cars, and may I go just back, right across the other side for a moment? I know it's rather awkward, but across here we have the vehicle that was the source of a lot of interesting later material. It's the penultimate car. Again, we're on the bonnet, which is the biggest piece of metal on the car, usually. Sometimes the roof is big, but it often has a panel which prevents it. But this is a big site. If we look carefully at the darkness there and the whiteness round it, that is the picture I called later Carnevale. And this little bit that protrudes and sticks slightly over the bonnet, over the grille, has a very interesting shape and form which we'll deal with. So we'll go back to that one, which I call Carnevale, which is after the Carnival in Venice, where masks are worn, which are often black or white and have slit-like eyes. And it was this particular figure that suggested that title, these narrow slot-like things. And there's a lot of interesting imagery in this. The white forms, here. The extreme contrast of black here, with a big eye hole. A pair of ears, as I saw it. Another face. And most intriguingly of all, this form down here. It didn't take me long to spot what it was, but very few people had seen it. So if we could just concentrate the film on this shape for a moment, see if anyone could spot what it might be.
I have to confess I can't.
You can't?
So.
Well, we'll now move on to what I developed from that one. Is that a... Shall I put it just there?
Yes.
How's
hold
that?
It and you can talk it.
No, let's talk it through. This image.
Yes, now it becomes apparent, you see, once you point it out.
There did seem to be a large nose here, so I haven't touched that. I've left that alone. A neck, and obviously a costume of sorts. Here it is, untouched. A leg, possibly a leg that way, but nothing linking that across. So what I decided to do, not in this one, but in the next one, was to link the two across. So this has now become, because I put a crown on it, or a pair of horns, it's become, let's say, Merlin, or any figure of alchemy or magic you care to name, it seemed. Then I found another attractive little form, which I didn't spot immediately, but I noticed had a slight bulge here, and a hint of a leg, so I thought it has to be a bird. Now I gave the bird an arm running towards the creature on this side, in the original one. Rather, I didn't give it, it was already in the photograph. But here I linked it up and made it more obvious. And the pair of ears here, I turned into a Cheshire cat.
And it's interesting because now you make that connection, I can see the smile here. But at first I couldn't see it.
It's just vaguely there, isn't it?
Well, it's a perfect Cheshire cat smile. One moment it's there and the next moment it isn't.
It's hinted as that already. And then last but not least, of course, is this dark form across here. Well, it's not the last, actually, but it's one of the last forms. There's obviously a backside and something projecting, which suggests a back limb, something here. Not all that clear, but it became a bear leaning forward. But close to this bear were two very intriguing forms, a figure here and a figure here. Now one has to look a little more carefully here, but I saw that as a back of a neckerchief round a rather amusing face. There's an eye, a nose, and possibly a costume, and an arm coming out. And here a smaller figure with a big hat, a beard maybe, and a striding back leg. So the two together became a pair of dancers, just visible, hadn't tinkered with it very much. A couple of Russian peasants in a round dance, possibly. And then most interesting of all were the two background figures. Here it wasn't very well defined, but I decided to separate those out and make a little more of this. It did seem there was a figure here with a leg, so it could be a horse. So a horse it became of sorts. I gave it a tail. And this side, a long floating figure, reminiscent perhaps of a picture you may have seen by Picasso coming out of the Guernica.
Yes.
And I've given it a little face at the far side. I've added a moon.
One important question, I think, is the extent to which the definition that you've created now in this picture is dependent upon colour changes that you've introduced.
That's also interesting, isn't it? This is much redder as a print, and here, now the reason for that is because I had a photocopy made of this, which tended towards yellow, and I painted on top with a gouache paint using that same yellow. Now I'd like to take this picture one stage further, and I should add, it's called, I've given it the title, Variations on Carnevale, this one, for my granddaughter. But it did seem to have, or enter into the realm of fairy tale, or nursery rhyme, and she was very young.
So now we go into another transformation.
Now this is the next stage on, with a little addition on this side. That's where it ended before, with this little face, you remember? I've just taken a little bit more of this print and stuck it on the end. So the bear has now moved centre stage, so to speak. And you'll probably notice another change. I've given Merlin a right arm, so it now links in to this, and he's pointing down towards the bear. The bird is still in its correct place.
And in fact, the rudiments of the arm are in the original.
Yes, they're already there. The lower part hasn't changed. So all I had to do is make a link across there. I modified the helmet or the headpiece of Merlin a little bit here. And I put my granddaughter in on this side with big eyes, with a hint of a smile, and lots of intriguing snake-like forms coming on that side. Again, I mentioned the granddaughter. There's one final follow-on from this, which is, again, not for a granddaughter, but for a friend's child, a grandchild, who was born a couple of months ago. And here is much more jolly. This is an etching, a coloured etching, and it's for the child's nursery. And I put Edward, that's his name, on the bear. And he's got a smile on his face, and he's been welcomed by Merlin. The title is Merlin Welcomes Young Edward. It's quite appropriate. The Cheshire Cat's on black, and we have a nice array of plant forms over here. I've introduced another bird at the end of the bird there. And so we've got, and the two Russian dancers have become much more prominent. And I think the horse is seen to be dancing and prancing. And there seems to be, interestingly enough, another figure that's been made out of the other two. The two mouths become the ears of another figure with two eyes, a little mouth here. So this is another transformative effect. This changing thing is always going on.
And it's taken us, in one sense, full circle, because it's brought us back to your starting point, which is the mixed media artwork that you were working on before you had, if you like, this diversion, this creative diversion into the creative photography.
Right, yes, that's a good point, actually, Patrick.
I wonder if